Krooks, and welcome to Lunch with Littman Krooks. Today we have two special guests joining us in Cukaj and Neal Siena from Quantum View Wealth Management, the private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise. Both are very well respected in their field, and I'm excited today to discuss the benefits of using a financial planner. This will be very conversational between Jack, Neal, and myself. And if anyone has any questions, please post them in the chat and we will answer them at the end. Neal will now give an introduction about themselves and their firm. So welcome.
Thanks, Joel. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Neal Siena, and this is Jack Cukaj. We proudly represent Quantum View Wealth Management, an independent Ameriprise private wealth advisory practice. We're located in Valhalla, New York, but we worked with individuals, families, and businesses across the country. I've been in the industry for 13 years. Jack's been an independent financial planner with Ameriprise for 29 years. I'm in the process of obtaining my Certified Investment Management Analyst designation, and Jack is a Certified Financial Planner and an accredited portfolio manager. We both graduated from Manhattan College, but we graduated a few years apart from one another. And we're excited to speak with the group today to share a little bit more about our practice, who we work with, and the value we provide to our clients. We work with a concentrated group of 150 high net worth families. And when you include the second and third generation of children and grandchildren, we have just over 225 clients. We are a team of 5 and growing, with Jack and myself as the team's financial advisors. The core of our practice is comprehensive financial planning, followed by investment management. When individuals and families hire us as their financial planner and investment manager, our goal is to help them feel confident, connected, and in control of their financial life. And we're able to do this through one-on-one financial advice based on their goals and needs, personalized recommendations for diversified portfolios and solutions to help protect them from uncertainty, and regular meetings to review their goals, progress, and investments. Now, everyone's goals are unique, and one of the benefits of being an independent financial planner is we have the ability to search the entire investment and insurance universe for the best solutions for our clients. When we're creating a financial plan for our clients, we provide the roadmap for their specific goals and needs, which cover all aspects of their financial picture, such as their financial position, helping them cover essentials with cash flow management and creating an emergency fund. We conduct tax planning throughout the year, helping them fund the appropriate college education savings accounts, maximizing their workplace benefits, preparing them for the unexpected, assessing needs for life insurance, Medicare supplemental insurance, disability income insurance, and long-term care insurance, leaving a legacy. We'll use tax-efficient strategies and plan ahead to help endure their legacy will leave an impact. And lastly, ensuring the lifestyle they want to live in retirement. Now, throughout the financial planning process, we will collaborate and work very closely with their tax, legal, and estate planning professional like Joel and his team.
Yeah, so that's a great introduction. So thank you, Neal. And so I guess let's start off with one of the big questions first, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but why do people need a financial planner? What benefits do you see people obtaining by using your services, and really what's the reason for people to go to you?
I think for us, it's for our clients, it's mostly the ability to work with someone that's objective, that can help them build a personal written financial plan. Because I think a lot of people plan for their financial goals in I guess more in an ad hoc way. We find that putting a client's goals on paper and working towards those goals in a comprehensive way allows us to mitigate any kind of risks that our client would fall into, and allow us to plan a little bit more effectively long-term.
Yeah, it's much different when you have everything in black and white. You're not just kind of shooting in the dark or throwing a dart at a dartboard. We have a specific plan in place and solutions to get to those goals and objectives.
Right, so going off that, if you could take me through like a typical meeting. So I call your office, and then what occurs next, and what do we really discuss?
So basically what we normally do is on the first call or the first meeting, we do it as complimentary. The goal of that meeting is for us to learn more about the client and for the client to learn more about us and the financial planning process and how we work with our clients over the long term. And then at the end of that meeting, we'll decide whether or not we want to work together. And then from there, we typically then would jump into a more data gathering type of meeting where we gather all the necessary information to help us build a proper financial plan. And then typically after that, we help our clients implement that financial plan, and then we'll meet regularly, usually every 4 months, to review their financial plan, review changes in tax laws, estate laws, investment changes, rebalancing. So we do that on an ongoing basis, typically quarterly, every 3 to 4 months.
And then when are a few like big moments when you believe that people should probably start contacting financial planners? Is it when they have a kid? Does their age affect financial planning? If I'm an elderly person, should I still contact a financial planner, or is it only for people who are in their 40s? So if you don't mind speaking a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, the best asset that we all have is time. So the earlier, the better. We work with a lot of second and third generation of children and grandchildren, and we try to get those individuals involved in the meetings from the beginning. We do a lot of financial literacy education for the younger children to help them get more acclimated to financial planning, the benefits of financial planning. But we wouldn't really put an age limit on financial planning. Obviously, for families that are young, they're starting to have kids, they're looking to purchase a home. The earlier, the better, especially when it comes to insurance coverage. But even if you're in your early to late 50s and you don't have a specific plan in place for the next 30 years of your life, it's not a bad time to start then either.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with estate planning. I mean, that's the same type of thing. Unfortunately, you never know in this world when something could happen to you. And so it's better to plan ahead and to know that you have the right plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned something about educational things or educational programs and literacy that you provide. And I was wondering, what type of education programs do you provide? Because I think a lot of people can benefit from specific education with financial information, because going on Google doesn't really necessarily always help. So can you speak a little bit more about?
What we normally do is when we initially have our first few meetings, we spend a lot of time in those meetings, besides gathering data, providing education around the specific areas that they're interested in, whether it be, for example, education planning, like what's the best way to say for education for a child or a grandchild. So we'll go into 529 plans, what that would look like, the pros and cons. We'll go into some basic tax planning, investment strategies for younger clients, the difference between even a mutual fund, an exchange traded fund, a closed-end fund, what does it all mean? So we'll provide a lot of education, not only through those first few meetings, but throughout our clients' lives. And then the goal is really to just provide at least 2 to 3 solutions for a client, and then together we choose what's best for them.
Yeah, I mean, I can only see how helpful that can be for everyone. I mean, a lot of people have specific questions, especially, for example, 529 plans. I mean, those are something that a lot of people don't fully understand. Or so if you could let me discuss a little bit about 529 plans and explain what happens even if, say, you invested money in a 529 plan, but then your kid decided that, or your child, that they didn't want to go to college, that they didn't need to use this money. So what would happen then?
Yeah. So a 529 plan has a few different tax benefits. One, in New York State, you get for a married couple, you get a tax deduction up to $10,000 for your state taxes. Although that doesn't help that much with the whole cap on state and real estate taxes. The real benefit is the tax-free growth of those assets. And if the child uses that, if those assets are used for college or grad school, then all the money that comes out of those assets are tax-free. So there's no income tax, state or federal, whether you use it in New York State or California. It doesn't matter where the child goes to school, the grandchild goes to school. If the assets are used for something other than college or grad school, and the Secure Act in 2018 allowed you to actually use 529 plans for high school and junior high, but New York State, that's not allowed. So at the federal level, you can do it, but not in New York State. But if you use it for anything other than school, you would pay a 10% penalty on all the earnings that that were created in that portfolio. and then you pay all the income tax on those earnings. Now, you would have paid that income tax anyway over time if it was in a non-retirement account or non-529 account. But ultimately, you would pay the tax on the earnings and the 10% penalty on top of it. But you could always transfer the 529 to another person. And if you do that, you avoid that tax penalty.
And when you say to another person, you mean to another child who might use it for the educational benefits.
Exactly.
And yeah, so I mean, and would you always recommend starting a 529 plan when someone has as a newborn, or would you wait to maybe see if you think they might be going to college? Like, is there an age really where you might look at it and be like, okay, this child looks like they're into education and I see them going to college? Or because a lot of newborns, I guess you don't really know what could happen.
Yeah, we always start with a basic contribution to a 529 plan just to start. And the earlier the better, even at 1 month old. Once they get the social security number for their child, then we suggest to start right away. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you did have to pull the money out and pay the penalty and the taxes, because again, the taxes you would have paid, but you do get that compounding over time. You could also use a 529 plan for yourself too. So there are a lot of accredited schools, like cooking schools. Actually, I think even some golf schools are involved, and so you could actually use it for yourself for things that you would think that you can't. So there are ways around it. But yeah, we would start right off the bat. Yeah. But we would never put all of our clients' funds in a 529 plan for that exact reason, Joel, that we want our clients to have flexibility.
Yeah, it seems though like the benefits of a 529 plan outweigh the potential of a child not going to school, because the penalty, it doesn't seem that harsh compared to the benefits. But one thing that you mentioned in the opening was emergency planning. And I think that this is extremely important. And so can you go into a little more detail on emergency planning and what type of emergency planning people should have in place? Because as we mentioned, nobody knows when you unfortunately might have a medical condition or when something might happen to a loved one. So
yeah, I think in the past 14 months was a friendly reminder that having a safety cushion is something very positive to have. That way you don't have to possibly dip into your qualified assets and pull money out and possibly pay a penalty. So with our financial planning clients, we typically recommend, depending on their lifestyle, anywhere from 3 to 6 months in some type of cash reserves. Depending on the age of the client and the type of risk tolerance they have, that could be something from a basic savings account to a money market vehicle to a short-term municipal bond fund. So it just depends on how comfortable the client is having that cash in that reserve bucket, taking on either zero risk or possibly just a little bit of risk.
Yeah, and another emergency plan that I'm sure you guys use is life insurance and long-term care, which whether you have the right insurance in place. So you can go into a little more, I know they kind of go together now a little bit. So if you can go into a little detail about life insurance and long-term care and how you can help the client get the right coverage for them.
Yeah. I think when we look at financial planning, the second piece of financial planning that we look at is protection planning, and that's for disability, medical, life, disability, long-term care. And so when we go through the financial plan, we'll look at all aspects of our client's financial situation, whether they have a pension, what their net worth is, obligations for kids, grandkids, all of their financial goals in detail. And then in the plan, we'll figure out for the client what the appropriate level of insurance would be, whether it be life insurance or long-term care. And as you said, Joe, both of them sometimes now go hand in hand, where you can have a life insurance policy and a long-term care rider within that policy that then basically acts as you could choose, if you have $1 million policy, you could choose to use it for long-term care or for life insurance. And the benefit of that is your premiums aren't going up every year like we're seeing with a lot of the John Hancock, Prudential, Genworth policies. You know that the insurance company knows that they're using this policy, that they're going to have to pay. The number is there. So whether the client uses it for long-term care or for life insurance, the insurance company knows what they got involved in. So the premiums are consistent and stay pretty flat.
And similar to a 529 plan, I'm assuming this is something that you look at a lot when someone has a child recently, and this is something that at that time, you might want to consider what would happen if something would happen to the parents' lives.
Yeah,
For sure.
and that's all drawn out in the financial plan.
And then I guess going off of that, just maybe you could talk how, I guess I could talk how we work together, how estate planners and financial advisors work together. So a lot of what we do is the financial advisors come up with a financial plan for their clients. And then at the end, they usually recommend, or during it, they recommend estate planning for their clients because they want to make sure that the wealth and the assets are protected upon their passing and that everything is distributed correctly or distributed per the wishes of the client. So if maybe, and another thing that we do with financial advisors is update beneficiary designations. So a lot of people have trouble updating beneficiary designation. They might not know exactly what to put. If it's in a trust for, let's say a child, they might not know exactly the terminology. So we work hand in hand with the financial advisors to make sure any accounts that they have are in line with what the wishes are of the client. And I don't know if you can think of anything else that we work together with, or when and really in the process you recommend estate planning.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone on this call is a client of Littman Krooks, but you may or may not have children or grandchildren that are starting to have their own children and create their families. And this is just a friendly reminder from two financial planners that right now is a great time for you to have the conversation with them, to sit down with Joel and his team to start that process. And, for example, we just brought on a client at the beginning of this year. We delivered the financial plan earlier this week, and one of the focuses on that financial plan was setting up their estate plan. They're young, they have a young child. We discussed insurance coverage and a lot of other things, but one of the main focuses was estate planning.
Yeah, a lot of people think when they're younger that they don't need estate planning. They might not feel like they have enough assets, or they might not feel that they're going to die because they're young. But we've seen way too many cases where they definitely needed an estate plan. They passed away without one, and it made the lives of their loved ones a lot more difficult because they didn't have the right planning in place. So you might not think that you need it, but I'm telling you, you do, and you don't know what's going to happen. And I think, Jack, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when we look at estate plan, we'll start from the basics first. Who owns what? And then we can help manage the beneficiary designations on their accounts. I can't tell you how many times we see a client who's in their 40s or 50s that still has their mother as the beneficiary on a 401k plan. And so, or they have children, they don't have guardians in their will. I mean, there's so many things that I'm sure, Joel, you see all the time.
Yeah, especially with minor children. You shouldn't be listing a minor child on a beneficiary designation. There should be the minor's trust set up in their estate plan, or it should go to somebody else, because if the minor receives money, then the court gets involved, and it's a much more difficult process.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, our work with Joel is invaluable. I mean, we're able to be able to go back and forth and figure out what are the best solutions for our clients.
Yeah. And to be honest, what financial advisors do is they take the burden off of you as the client. I mean, they do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of updating beneficiary designation, making sure you have the right investments in place, the right coverage in place. So instead of putting it all on your shoulders, they help take a lot of the burden off. So that's just one thing that they do. But let's get into maybe a little bit about your fees and how everything works. I'm sure people are curious about how and what type of client you're looking for in terms of, is there a minimum amount that you expect to be invested, or how do you do the investing for the clients, or do you just tell them where to invest?
Sure. Yeah, so of the 150 high net worth families that we work with, almost 99% of them hire us as their financial planner and their investment manager. In terms of the financial planning fee structure, it depends on the complexity of the situation of the plan. A basic financial plan for a young family who's just starting out, doesn't have a lot in assets, just kind of building their foundations. A plan like that could cost $1,250, but a more complex individual who owns a number of businesses, a number of real estate, that type of plan could be upwards of $10,000. The financial planning fees is a service that we provide as a retainer for the year. We always tell clients if they want to hire us as their financial planner for the year, if they don't feel like we provided value for that year, then we could just continue to manage their assets moving forward, and then they don't have to sign the retainer for the following year. But we haven't seen that happen yet. On the investment management side of things, we are primarily fee-based advisors. So we do charge a percentage of assets under management. And that also depends on the complexity of the investment solutions and also the dollar amount of assets that we have under management. And if clients want to learn a little bit more about the specifics of both the financial planning fee structure and the investment management fee structure, we'd be more than happy to speak to anyone in further detail.
And with the investments, is there a minimum that you require?
No, I mean, it really depends. I mean, most of our clients are actually coming to us through either you, Joel, or other relationships that we have, but mostly through our clients. And so, for example, we have 2 clients right now that we're working with. They're our clients' daughters. One's actually going to UPenn for law school. One's going to UPenn for undergraduate. And they have small amounts of money, but we're here to provide advice to them as well. Mm-hmm. So our goal is to get them on the right start right off the bat. And so, so there really isn't a minimum, but we do have, I mean, obviously our clients have taken care of us over the years, and we've done really well. And we're a private wealth group at Ameriprise, and one of the top groups in the country. And so, I mean, typically if someone comes off the street, which rarely ever happens, we tend to look at some minimums, but it's really more based on personality and how we can help the person over time.
Mm-hmm. Right, so you're looking for the right fit just to work together as a team. Yeah, completely understood. And maybe I think another thing that people might be interested in is if you can take us through like what you might recommend for let's look at, for example, a young 35-year-old who just had a kid. So maybe if you could take me through like what everything you would look through for that type of situation. And maybe we could also look at what would you do if someone came in who's say 70-year-old and their kids are having grandchildren, and they are more financially stable at that time, but they might be looking for either the grandchildren or maybe for themselves. So those 2 types of situations.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, they're pretty similar in a lot of ways because we walk them through the whole financial planning process and the 6 to 7 key areas of financial planning. So we'll always start off with cash position, cash reserves. What does it look like? Do you have an emergency fund? What's your net worth? How does that impact the rest of your financial goals? Then we'll go into protection planning, like disability, life, health, long-term care. From there, then we jump into, it doesn't matter if a person's 35 or 70, what their financial goals are in terms of gathering assets for specific goals. A goal, like for example, maybe for a younger person, it's buying a home. And for an older person, it might be buying a second home or a third home. And then from there, we'll go into tax planning, and then retirement planning, and then finally estate planning. And then for some for executives, directors, younger individuals that have benefits through their employer, we'll go through workplace financial planning. Mm-hmm. So we'll help them maximize all of their benefits that their employer provides, whether it be basic disability, life insurance, or advanced stock options, restricted stock, that type of thing. So
and if somebody already had a life insurance, long-term care insurance policy, you would look at it, right, and determine whether that's one to keep or whether that's one maybe we should switch, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We try and use our clients' companies' plans to provide the basis for a lot of our recommendations on insurance. And there are some companies out there that still have long-term care options within their benefits. Mm-hmm. And so we'll try and maximize those resources first. And if we can't maximize those resources or we maximize them, then we'll go and look outside of their workplace to find those solutions. Whether it's, and we could work with any, we're independent, as Neal said, we're independent. We could work with any investments, we could work with any insurance companies. So our goal is just to provide the best products and strategies for our clients.
Another question that I received before this is more directed towards me, but is I just wanted to share it is somebody asked, with regard to financial planning for an elderly person, how can one combine the benefits of putting an appointment into an irrevocable trust for Medicaid purposes and for avoiding probate with the need for financial flexibility? Example, if one needs to take out money, take out of the appointment to pay for the elderly person's expenses by doing a reverse mortgage or taking out a HELOC. does putting the apartment into a trust limit one's financial options? So yes, it does limit someone's financial options. Once it goes into an irrevocable trust, for Medicaid purposes, you really don't want to touch that house. It's important that you just leave it be. If you do touch it and do like a reverse mortgage or a HELOC, Medicaid might say that the principal is accessible, and that might restart the look back period to a different time. So it's important, if you do decide to put your house into an irrevocable trust for Medicaid purposes, that you let that house stay put and don't really do too much to it. If anyone has any other questions, now would be a good time to post them in the chat. We're happy to discuss. And then, but if not, we can chat about it. I think I have a few more questions from beforehand. Just take a look. I don't know if you mentioned this in the beginning, Neal, but how many assets do you currently have under management? And yeah, that's the one person's question.
So with the high net worth families that we work with, along with a select few of retirement plans that we manage for some publicly traded companies and some smaller mom and pops types of businesses, we're just under $500 million total in assets under management.
Yeah, and I'll give it a few more minutes to see if there's any other questions, but if not, then
yeah, and if anyone has questions but maybe doesn't feel comfortable doing it in this format, they could always reach out to us through our relationship with Joel. So
yeah.
Yes, and definitely if you want to reach out to me first and I can reach out to them, that's also an option. But really, I mean, we can't stress the importance of just getting a plan in order, whether it be financially, your estate plan, just making sure that everything's taken care of. And now we got a question. How does a special needs trust come into play with financial planning and irrevocable trust for Medicaid purposes? So that actually, I mean, that would be very personal to a person. For example, if they have a special needs trust, you want to consider how much you want to leave to that special needs trust in order to make sure that that child is set up for life in the case something happens. So, I mean, those people with special needs children, I think, might need a financial planner even more because they have a more unique situation in terms of making sure that that special needs child is taken care of completely at the time of when the parents are no longer able to take care of a child. For the Medicaid planning, it's less likely that a financial planner is needed at that time because for Medicaid, you really only need $15,000. You can really only have $15,900 of resources. So it wouldn't make as much sense at that point to have a financial planner. But it's more for if you do have a special needs child, I think that they can be a great use. And does Medicaid have the right to touch a special needs trust? If it's a third-party supplemental needs trust, the answer is no. If it's a first-party supplemental needs trust, meaning that that money was funded with the child with disabilities own money, then yes, they do have a right to come back at the time of when the supplemental needs trust ends and take that money. So it's only for one type of trust, this first-party supplemental needs trust, and not the third-party. We'll stick around for a few more minutes if there's any additional questions, and if not, then you can always ask us after. But is there anything else you guys want to add?
Well, I was going to say when we work with clients when it comes to funding trusts, that financial position that we do in the financial plan, the initial piece, we do a very thorough cash flow analysis. So that gives us a better sense of how much a client can afford to actually move into a trust and not move into a trust so that they can maintain their lifestyle too.
Yeah, and I also cannot recommend when a lot of times we fund trusts, but people don't realize that it just because the document's drafted doesn't mean the trust has any bearing or any purpose at the moment. You actually have to put the account title into the name of the trust in order to assets to flow through the trust. So many people think we give them the documents and then everything's all set. But in reality, they actually have to go, and if they're working with a financial advisor, that financial advisor can change the account information to be the name of the trust. And that's a very big step that a lot of people kind of look over. And it's a very important one, especially if you want to try to avoid probate or whatever your goals are. It's extremely important to make sure that account is actually retitled.
I'm sorry. Hello.
If you could just post anything that you have in the chat,
Okay.
and we'll answer. So just wait on one more question, looks like.
Sure.
I'm trying to. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have a question, another question. Is the following situation appropriate for your financial management services? There's an 83-year-old father, recently widowed, with memory problems, disabled, and has approximately $300,000 in assets, but is spending down for expenses. Has estate planning docs in place, house in irrevocable trust, and the $300,000 stocks in irrevocable trust. So I don't think that this is, if I'm wrong, let me know, but I don't think that this is the type of situation that needs a financial advisor or planner, just because it looks like most of the assets already held in an irrevocable trust, unless they're looking for someone to manage those trust assets.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Then, okay, just give it another minute. And
Sure. Yeah, our office is at 200 Summit Lake Drive in Valhalla. We've been doing a lot of virtual meetings, but for clients that are, more interested in coming and seeing us in person, we're open to it. Our entire team here is fully vaccinated, and, we are being responsible. If individuals prefer wearing a mask in the office, then that's what we do. So.
yeah, same thing. We're open as well to 50% capacity. And so we've been having meetings with clients in person or via Zoom, depending on what day. So hopefully this pandemic will end soon. It seems like the CDC is starting to release some mask restrictions.
Yeah, I just saw that. That's good news.
Yeah. And so one other thing that we might be able to touch on quickly is there's all these new upcoming laws, and if there's anything that you or Jack are informing clients because of the new upcoming laws in the Biden administration.
Yeah, we're just slowly prepping for it.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I know they're going to release some data this week. We have talked about the impacts on estate planning and the reduction in the credit. Some of the things that they might be able to do in this year. Capital gains tax and what we could potentially do this year as opposed to waiting until next year. But right now we're just in the preliminary stages of I guess we could say, worrying about it.
Yeah, same here with the possible federal estate tax exemption, moving down to maybe 3.5 million.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
okay.
less than that too. We'll see.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we're here if you need us, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks,
Okay.
Neal.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Take care. Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, Joel.